G'day and welcome back to the next big thing. We're actually in a new season of the next big thing, the business season. And this is the first episode, and I'm thrilled to welcome our guest for today. He is a globally recognized transformation consultant. He's an entrepreneur, and guess what? He's also a Taekwondo world champion. Oh my God, I can't wait to talk about that. He is the founder, the CEO of Sprint Agile, works with multi-billion-dollar companies, and I'm sure we've all seen him featured on TV, print, online media. And I'm going to let him now talk about his inspiring journey, his business journey, his personal journey as well. So please, without further ado, welcome my guest for today, Arash Arabi. Arash, how are you, mate?
Thank you, Shriram. Thanks for your kind intro. I'm pretty well. Thank you so much. How are you?
I'm very well. Looking forward to chatting with you, of course, and learning something myself. Every day I find is a wonderful learning opportunity, and I'm sure this is going to be one as well. So welcome to the show.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. Pleasure to be here.
Excellent. Excellent. As you know, it's called The Next Big Thing, and we want, through our guests, to inspire listeners to do great things, to do big things, to become the next big thing in whatever field they choose. So thank you for being part of this. Now, as you know, we have a tradition on the next big thing, and we started right from the very first episode in season 1, which is about 30 episodes, and then we did season 2, which was a Grammy focused season, and then we did 20 episodes. So in all 50 of them, we always do the same thing, which is ask our guest to share 2 statements about themselves, and only they know that one of them is false and one of them is fiction, and only they know which one's which. I don't. So over to you. If you're ready, I would love to hear your 2 statements, and you can say them in any order.
Right.
Let's see how I do.
Great. So the first statement is, I am Australia's bouldering champion. Not standing, but I have won a gold medal in Australian bouldering competitions.
Bouldering.
Yes, like a rock climbing, but
Wow.
on a shorter height.
Right. Australian
Right.
champion in bouldering. Okay, interesting.
The second statement is, I'm a survivor from the 2004 tsunami, Indian Ocean tsunami. I was there at the beach and I survived the tsunami.
Wow. Oh, that's a tough one. I actually don't know where to go with this. So, rock bouldering, I'm guessing so if that is true, that means you'll have a lot of upper body strength, and you look like you're pretty good there. And the 2004 tsunami, you're on the beach. Now, you didn't tell me exactly where you were.
I was in Penang, Malaysia.
So you're saying Penang, Malaysia. Wow. I was there, but not in 2004. Penang, Malaysia, and you survived the tsunami on the beach. Okay, so I'm going to go with 2004 being a fact, that you actually survived the tsunami in Malaysia, and the bouldering thing is not true. That's my guess.
You are absolutely on the spot, man. That's correct. Yes.
That's phenomenal. Wow, we could spend an entire podcast talking about your fact. Tell me about it. So you were there on the day. So this is December 25th, right? December 25th or
December
something.
24th, I think, or 5th.
4th, yes. Eve of
Yeah.
Christmas, correct, yes. And that is so interesting. That is so interesting. So
Yeah.
you were actually on the day. Tell me about it. What happened?
So there was an earthquake 7 a.m. in the morning.
Mm,
I woke up. It was just like a vibration.
mm,
Is it an earthquake? Is it not? I don't know. Woke
mm,
up 7 a.m. and then I was there with my family, with my
mm,
dad and everyone,
mm,
and then we had some family friends over there as well.
mm.
And I went and talked. We were talking. Yeah, there was an earthquake. There was in the news and everything.
Yeah,
And I said to my dad's friend, "Well, if there was an earthquake in the ocean, there would be a tsunami." And then
right.
he said, "What? What the hell? No, what's tsunami? I don't even know what that is." I said, "No, no. When there's an earthquake in the ocean, there's a wave." And
Yeah.
he was a mechanical engineer, so he said, "No, water is fluid; it can absorb the energy. There won't be a wave or anything." I
And
said,
this was
"Okay, fair
happening
enough."
at 7-ish a.m.
Yeah, so we were having breakfast later. I think maybe about 9 or something.
Yeah, yeah,
7 a.m. was the
yeah.
earthquake itself, right?
Yes, yes, yes.
Then later on, completely forgot about it. Went down to the beach and I was taking some photos, and my family went back up. So it's really funny. My sister was having a like she didn't want to be at the beach. She said, "Oh, let's go back up." She was a bit young at that moment. She was like,
Yes,
"Oh,
yes.
I don't want to be here." A bit of a tantrum. Let's go back up. And my mom and my sister, they went back, and I stayed back, and I was taking some photos, and I saw a wave coming. And I thought to myself, that's the tsunami I was talking about. I knew it, right? But I didn't know what a tsunami is. I just thought it's a big wave. I
Yeah.
didn't imagine, how devastating it could be. So I thought to myself, I'm gonna stay here and I'm gonna take a photo of this tsunami and I'm gonna show it to everyone and say, hey, I
Yeah.
was, I have a
That's
photo of a
awesome.
tsunami.
Wow.
And back then I didn't have a digital camera. It was like a film, 2004 was a film camera.
Yeah.
I had a really good Canon. I stayed there. There was like multiple waves coming. You could see them. The first one hit the beach. I took a photo and thought to myself, well, that's nothing. What the hell was that? It was a pretty simple wave,
Yeah,
not
yeah.
a big splash. How would I go down and there's gonna be this big rock and I'm gonna get a good angle. The second wave it comes, I'm gonna
Yeah.
take a photo from there to see,
Yeah.
the wave splashing.
Yeah.
Went down and the second wave came. So apparently the first wave is not powerful, and after the
Yeah.
second wave like compresses the water quite a lot. Second wave came, splashed on the rock, took a photo, but then I realized it's not stopping, it just keeps coming.
Uh-huh.
And I thought, oh, I don't want to get my feet wet or anything. So I ran back, jumped on a stone, and I thought to myself, oh, lucky I didn't get my feet wet. As that thought was going through my head, an entire wall of water just completely smashed and went over my head. So the
Ooh.
whole thing took around maybe 10 seconds
Yeah,
or
yeah.
30 seconds possibly. And I felt I'm in a washing machine. So it was just like turning you around and
Yeah.
smashing you to places. And I got smashed to a tree. I quickly grabbed onto the tree. And then and then the water started going back. Penang wasn't really badly hit
Yeah.
because Penang is steep. The water didn't go to the city. It was pretty much only at the beach.
Wow.
And I got stuck to the tree. I held on to the tree, and then the water started going down, and I could see people like being dragged, or I could see really terrible things happening. Then I pulled myself up. The water went down, and I just didn't look back. I ran to the hotel,
Yeah.
pretty shocked. Um, Later in the day, I mean, as I was going up, I could see lots of, people, even children, losing their lives, and really terrible things. Later on, I thought, okay, people told me that you have to go back to the beach if you don't want this to turn into a massive trauma. You have to go back to the place that it happened. And I thought,
Yeah.
okay, let's do it. I'm gonna go back. This
Yeah.
is such a big thing. I don't want it. So I went down to the beach and it was completely different. Even the
Yeah.
trees, the pine trees have moved, those big
Yeah.
boulders have moved.
Yeah.
It was a massive thing. Yeah, so that's the story of the tsunami.
Wow, that is
Really
one
lucky.
heck of a story. And the family was okay. They were in.
Yeah, they were up in the hotel, and Penang, it's pretty steep.
Yeah.
So um, the hotel was, I think, easily
But
30
but
meters.
but you saw people losing their life in front of
Oh,
you.
yeah, I did. I did. And I still can remember some of those scenes. Sometimes it comes to me. I felt guilt a little bit, especially with children getting dragged right in front of me. And yeah,
Yeah, yeah. Wow, that's a very, 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 very close shave.
yeah,
It was something else.
it was
Yeah.
something. Yeah,
I've
I laugh at it now, but it was.
yeah, no, it's well, yeah, I mean you can thank your lucky stars that here you are, you know, survived to tell the tale.
Yes.
You live to tell the tale. But others were obviously not so lucky around that time. But hey,
Right.
that's the closest I think I can think of is a friend of mine who was in the World Trade Center on the 10th of September
Mm. He
and was there
survived.
taking photos. Yeah, and so left either that night or early the next morning, like really early the next morning, and then we know what happened
Lucky,
next.
yeah.
So, but this is wow, this is something else.
Yeah.
So I come from my roots are from India,
Yes.
and India was also very badly hit during that time. Southern India was devastated around that time, and yeah, wow, what a journey. Did that experience? Obviously, there's trauma, and you
Yes.
confronted that trauma. I think that's a good lesson there, saying, okay, you confront your fears and you
Yes.
just take it head on, and maybe there's a healing element to that. So I have two questions. Was there a healing element, A? And B, did that experience shape you in any way on the business journey in terms of taking risks, in
Mm.
terms of putting yourself out there? Did that happen? So two questions.
That's a
Healing.
really good question. I'm gonna take a step back, and last year I was doing therapy. I mean, I try to do therapy as often as I can.
Sure.
It's pretty expensive, so
Sure.
and I always do it with the best, so they're pretty
Yeah.
expensive.
Yeah.
And one of the things that I learned about myself was in my childhood, I was
Yeah.
scared all the time. You know, I was
You were scared all the time?
all the time. Yeah, I was a
Right.
scared little boy. I was scared of everything, scared of ghosts, scared of
Yeah.
insects, everything.
Yeah, yeah.
But during my teenage years, something flipped
Yeah.
and I became a crazy risk taker.
Right. Okay. So complete opposite.
Complete opposite, and
Right.
in many cases even reckless. So I
Right.
can tell you so many reckless things that I've done.
Mm.
I mean, this tsunami, it was reckless. You know, I saw the wave coming and I thought, oh, it's not going to be anything. I'm going to go down, take a photo. But I've done worse things than that as well.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, and my therapist was telling me this is the same thing. So that fear and recklessness, it's the same thing. It's your defensive mechanism.
Yeah.
Confront your fear and go
Yeah.
towards it.
Yeah.
So you're behaving reckless things because you're afraid of those things.
Right.
And that was really interesting for me. It made me a little bit less reckless
Yeah. Yeah.
after that
Yeah.
conversation.
Yeah.
Just, you
More
know,
calculated?
more calculated.
Yeah.
I mean,
Okay.
I'm always a calculated person, even when I'm
Mm.
reckless. But when I'm reckless, there's an emotional element
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
I want to do these things. There's
Yeah. So
adrenaline.
and it takes over the intellect, doesn't it?
Exactly. It
Yeah.
takes
Yeah.
over the intellect.
Yeah.
But being aware of it now makes it a bit more, I'm a bit more grounded, and it
Yeah.
becomes easier not to let the adrenaline take over the intellect.
Yeah. Yeah. Very
So
interesting.
to your question, going back to the beach definitely helped
Mm.
because an intense thing that happens to you like that,
Mm.
sometimes hard to differentiate what really happened and what not. You may construct some memories and it may become true, reality and fiction may become blurred.
Merge.
Going
Yeah.
back to the beach certainly did help me getting grounded and saying,
Yeah.
get to the place where it happens, that's how it looked like.
Yeah.
And especially also having photos of it was also
Yeah.
helpful. And later on, funny thing, the camera survived and I came back, but I couldn't open it to get the film out. I came back,
Oh yeah.
turned off the lights in the room, and I was living at Singapore at that time.
Yeah.
I went back to my room in Singapore and I had to use a knife at zero light to open the camera,
Yeah.
take
Yeah.
out
Yeah.
the film, get it developed. So I do have the photos of
Oh wow.
the wave. It's a bit, it's a bit wavy and it's got
Yeah.
water damage and everything to it, but yeah, it's still visible. Um,
Wow.
how did it shape me? I think confronting death, thinking about you could die at any time is a motivation to cherish moments of your life and
Yeah.
live
To
a
be more
life
mindful and
mindful
enjoy it.
and not to be complacent with 9 to 5 or
Mm.
whatever it is. I want to live my life. I want to do
You want to
things.
leave a legacy, make a difference, all
Leave
of
a
that.
legacy, but more than that, I want to do things. I want to experience
Yeah,
things.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Wow, that is a very powerful moment. So thanks for sharing that. It's not I can imagine it's not easy, right?
Mm.
To do that. But so thank you for choosing this space to share that. And it certainly helps me get a bit of perspective on your life, like the things you've been through. So thank you for sharing that. Much appreciated. So this was 2004, and you went back when?
I went back to the beach immediately. So
Wow.
in the afternoon of the same day. So about, the tsunami hit about 12. So I went back maybe about 2, 3 p.m.
That is brave because you had no idea what was cooking in the ocean at that time, right?
Yeah.
So, and what was coming. Wow, well done. So amazing story. And let's move forward. I think you would have. When did you give birth to Sprint Agile again? How many years?
So Sprint Agile is 2018.
Right.
That we started 2018, and not sure if your listeners would be familiar with the concept of agile. So it's pretty
Oh,
much
please educate us. Yes.
mechanism for project management.
Mm,
I mean, well, there's different ways of explaining it. The simplest way of explaining it is, if you think about a normal project, a
mm,
construction project, you say you have a house, you're
yeah.
building a house. What are the steps that you go through? First you figure out what kind of house you want. You come up with your requirements, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Then you get an architect to design the house, and you approve the design.
Yeah.
And then you go about building the foundation, and even before that, you go through doing all the paperwork and everything, then doing the foundation, and then building the house itself, and then validating if everything is installed correctly by these different contractors who work. And then you have a house and you move in, right?
Mm,
That's a traditional way of managing projects. Humans have been doing this for thousands and thousands of years,
yeah.
since the Egyptians built the pyramids. They've been doing this.
Right.
Now, in the 1970s, we had computers, right? Computers became more of a mainstream thing, and software engineering and software projects became more popular. And computer scientists really quickly figured out that mechanism, that way of managing projects, is not going to work well with software technology projects. So they came up with more of an iterative approach, which gives us more agility and ability to respond to change.
Mm,
Let's say you're building a house, halfway through, you decide you don't want your kitchen to be there, you want your kitchen to be somewhere else. Not going to
wow.
happen, right? It's going to cost a fortune. And the architect is going to tell you this will delay the project for another 6 months, and you have to pay
Yeah.
another $300,000, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Easy. Easy. Yeah.
But in technology projects, what the agile mindset and agile methodologies give us is an ability to be more agile and change
Mm,
our mind and respond to changing conditions quickly and easily. So it's
mm,
more of an iterative approach. You go through your requirements analysis, design, development, and testing in little chunks,
yeah.
feature by feature for each
Yeah.
part of your software. Now, in the past 10 years, it's become a lot more popular, and now we talk about business agility and large corporations using this various agile frameworks and agile mindset
Yes.
in delivering solutions. So it's
Yeah.
not just software, it could be products and services.
Mm,
And Sprint Agile was a consulting and training company. So we provide various certified courses for people
mm.
who want to get various agile certificates. There's about, I don't know, 10 or 12 different certificates we offer, and agile consulting, of course.
Fantastic. Fantastic. And this is your baby. This is what.
That's my baby. That's right.
Yes. Okay. All right. And have you always had these entrepreneurial aspirations? Did they come early or did they come a bit later? And
They came about pretty early. I mean, even in high school, I was doing some things with my friends. It was not conscious until my 20s.
yeah.
So in my 20s, my dad was a big role model for me, and then he started his own business
Right.
when
Okay.
I was about 18, I think.
Right.
And I saw his business and the work that he was doing. So I become inspired by his work in my 20s.
Yeah.
And he encouraged me, yeah, you should become an entrepreneur and everything. I mean, he wasn't saying you should not study. He was saying, yeah, definitely study, go to uni, get a job, but also have your ultimate goal as becoming an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
So risk management, right? You don't
Yeah.
throw out everything like Bill Gates or
Yes.
or some of those guys and go in your garage. You still take that path, but on the side, you also think about entrepreneurship.
Okay.
And I did have, I can say, probably 5 decent products or companies.
Mm,
All of them failed until Sprint Agile was successful.
Right. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. And even after Sprint Agile, I can say probably about 10 more things I've tried that has failed so
Right.
far.
Right. Yeah. And I find that quite normal, because in the line of work that I do, and as you know, I'm a inspirational speaker, or I try to be. I'm a peak performance coach, which is how I earn my bread and butter. And we spoke off air, and I also dabble as a vocalist, as a musician. But a lot of what I speak about as a speaker, mindset seems to play a big role in a lot of these. So do you find that, how do you change the attitudes of organizations when you want to convince them and persuade them of an agile approach? How does that go? Are they stuck in their own sort of rut, or how are they with change?
So this question is well, it is really hard to answer. I can give you a few tips that I try, but ultimately think of it like, you go to a general in the Roman times. You go to a general and ask him, how do you win a war, right?
Yeah.
Every battle is different. Every situation is different. You'll have tactics, you'll have strategies. Sometimes you give up, sometimes you pull back, sometimes you go in from the behind. So I can give you a few tips that generally are applied,
Yeah.
but they don't work universally, right?
Right.
The first one is you start by focusing on the people who are more likely to convert.
Mm.
You find your champions, people who are going to easily say, "Oh, I love this thing. Let's bring it on. Let's do it."
Yeah.
You start by focusing on those people and build some momentum.
Yeah.
Uh, and build a coalition
Yeah.
that are going to support you
Yeah.
internally. Also, make sure you understand who are the influential people in that company. Influential people, I mean, there's different aspects of influence. You got position, hierarchy. Of course, higher in the hierarchy you are, the more influential you are, but not always. You got sometimes some people who are low in the hierarchy or even front line who are super influential. They know everything and they have a lot of friends in the company and they're well connected. So you find those people who are influential, irrespective of where in the hierarchy they are, and focus on building connections with those people and leveraging those connections.
Yeah.
Now, in terms of changing someone's mind, the single most important skill, I would say, it's empathy. Because
Nice.
before you want to change someone's mind, you have to understand what's going on in their head and what's
Yeah.
going on in their heart,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. Very true. Very true.
You need empathy first.
Yeah.
Then, after your understanding, then you can think about where is the common ground? How can we? I don't want to change this guy's mind. I want to influence this guy. I want us to co-create something new. I
Co-create.
don't
Good
know.
word.
How can I be sure my advice is 100% correct? I may pretend I know everything, but I don't. So we're all human.
It's your perspective, isn't it?
Absolutely. It's my perspective. And the other person's perspective may have a lot of truth in it as well. So we need to have thoughtful disagreement and we need to move the conversation forward and co-create, the best solution.
Co-creation and thoughtful. Sorry, you said thoughtful agreement, is that right?
Thoughtful disagreement.
Disagreement, yes.
Yes.
Co-creation and thoughtful disagreement. I think those are words I think the whole world needs, right, to understand at all levels. They get pretty upset when opinions differ very, very quickly.
Exactly. And that's really hard. Sometimes, people it gets personal, if there's a disagreement, I feel I'm under the attack.
Yeah.
And for me particularly, it's very hard if someone is not wise in the words that they choose, and I feel they're attacking me. I get defensive, and I have to come back and calm myself down and make sure I don't derail the conversation into a conflict and bring it back to thoughtful disagreement.
Indeed. So a lot of bringing it makes me reflect on the work I do. So I talk about peak performance, and I've developed 7 pillars of peak performance, and they range from limiting beliefs to how to operate in your element. But one of my modules, and the more popular element module, is called the Sea of Calm, and I talk about how we leave the Sea of Calm and go to agitated states or disconnected states, and how we can come back. And you said coming back to a calm state. Because I think the magic happens when you're calm. not when you're like all over the place. You know, peak performance, great achievement, I think happens when you're in a calm but focused state. So that's interesting. Okay, good, great stuff. Arash, you talk about, you know, you're an entrepreneur. A lot of what you talk about is uncertainty.
Yes.
And the thing that is certain in life is uncertainty.
Absolutely.
And on the other hand, you also talk about how to make decisions. You say, don't just make decisions based on opinions, make decisions based on evidence.
Yes.
And I'm trying to sort of assess these two, because when things are uncertain, how do you find evidence? Like there's probably lack of information in that environment. So how do you go towards evidence-based decision-making, evidence-based leadership in an ambiguous, uncertain environment?
Absolutely, absolutely. So there's a gentleman, his name is Dave Snowden, if I'm not mistaken. Not Edward Snowden, not the
Not Ed
whistleblower.
Snowden.
This is
Okay,
Dave
yeah.
Snowden, I think.
Okay.
And he has a framework called Kinefen.
Mm,
And this Kinefen framework is, I think it's a Welsh word. I don't know what it means.
mm,
Or Kineven or something like that. It's really hard.
right. Right.
The idea is you have different domains. So first domain is simplicity. I mean, this is in terms of increasing uncertainty, right?
Mm,
So simple situation is everything is clear, cause and effect clearly linked.
right.
Very simply, just go and do whatever you have to do. You move up the chain of uncertainty, then there is complicated. Complicated, you do analysis, you figure out, you just do analysis, you figure out all the facts, put those facts together, and then make a decision. Then we got complex.
Mm,
This is the domain where we are operating in most of the times. This word of uncertainty, it's a complex word. The connection of the relationship between cause and effect are not always clear.
sure.
We can't say for sure that something is going to happen. Predicting future is going to be really complex, and you can't predict the future by doing analysis because there's so many different factors involved that you can't take all of them into action. I'll come back to that. Now, the next level is chaotic. Chaotic means, I don't know, there's an earthquake, there's a firestorm, there's something, and you can't even predict the future. You just have to run. You just have to do something.
Yeah. Okay.
React. Yeah. Just find the direction and run, and you don't know if you're gonna die or you're gonna survive, right? And after that is disorder. But what we're talking about is the complex domain. That's our focus. So in the complex domain is not disorder or chaotic, but it's also not complicated, because in complicated you can do assessment, you can do analysis, and you can make a decision based on that. In complex environment, you need to have a combination of your gut feeling and your evidence. How do you come up with the right evidence? Is you take an iterative and scientific approach. I'll give you an example. Say Sir Isaac Newton. He came up with this theory of gravity. How did he come up with? That's crazy. Where did that idea come from? How did he even come up with that idea? One day he was sitting under the tree, he saw the apple fall, and he was thinking about this problem: what makes the moon go around the earth? And he thought to himself, okay, maybe the apple falling, the force which pulls the apple down, is the same force that makes the moon go around the earth. Interesting idea. How can we know that? We need to validate and verify this idea, if it's correct or not. Empiricism. We need to gather empirical evidence. So he models it. He said, okay, maybe this is the formula that affects it. Now let's test it out. He's going and throwing some balls and measuring the trajectory and things like that. And the evidence based on him throwing the ball is going to confirm that his theory was correct. It's the same deal here as entrepreneurs. We need evidence, but we don't have evidence because we're in an uncertain world. So what kind of experiment can we devise to gather the evidence that we need, right? Think about, okay, can I go out with I want to launch a new product. I don't know if it's going to be successful or not. The simplest one is taking people to do a survey. Not really good, right? What's the next best thing? Maybe you draw it on a piece of paper and go out in the street and ask people to interact with it. Or maybe you build what we call an MVP, or a proof of concept. Launch it to a select group of people and see how people react to it. Based on that data and that evidence.
A pilot
Exactly, and validate your hypothesis, basically.
Yeah. So interesting. So interesting. So again, you mentioned head and heart a couple of times. And I think the reason I resonate with a lot of that is because I speak about that on a daily basis. So for me, it's a lot about head and heart integration. I talk about how to bring head and heart together. And that's where, again, the magic happens. If you want to problem solve, but you need to do it with empathy.
Yes.
How do you bring that together?
So very
gut feeling. Yes. There's a lot of my decisions, I must say, have been purely based on gut. And a lot of them have been very good. Like the decision to my life partner was purely based on gut. I keep telling her, like, it's not like I sat down with a pen and paper and said pros and cons. I didn't do that. I don't know if she did, but it turned out to be a good decision so far. So
That's the thing. Gut feeling is, I think there's two types of gut feeling. One type of gut feeling is what you described, right? This is information that you know, but it's so deep down inside that you can't calculate, you can think about it, because it's all based on all the information that you get from your environment and everything, and all the really subtle things that you can't describe. All that information is valuable data, right? You can't ignore that. It's very valuable data.
it's data. Yeah, it is
Trust.
data. Yeah,
Exactly. Now, there's a different type of gut feeling that we need to be really careful, right? Like fortune tellers, they say, I have a gut feeling that this thing is going to be happening, or a gut feeling that's, I think, where we shouldn't go, because in that sense, it's a bit dangerous, because if you look at psychics, I don't know any entrepreneur who is a psychic, or I don't know any psychic who can be a good entrepreneur, right?
Right.
If you want to be a good entrepreneur, it's about the other type of gut feeling, which you talked about.
With some data.
With some data, exactly, right?
So, and that's a visionary, right? That's not a psychic. So visionary leader, we call that, is
Exactly.
somebody who processes the data in front of him or her, and then is able to see a trend in the future. As psychic is pure. What do they base it on?
So I think it's both intuition. Both of them are a type of gut feeling, but the difference is one type of gut feeling is based on the data that you're gathering from this world. The other type of gut feeling, I mean, we'll get a bit spiritual, is the type of data you gather from a different world, right?
Oh, that is very interesting.
You're a psychic, you're connected to a different universe, maybe.
Wow.
But if that's the case, that's not going to help us with this world, right?
Yeah. So
It's because somewhere else.
And especially in a business world, in a commercial sense, you're saying there's really no room for psychics.
I haven't even seen a single person who's successful business and commercial, and also, a medium or psychic. I personally haven't seen one yet.
Visionary, yes. Psychic, no, is what you're saying.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. Right. Okay. Fantastic. Great to understand that. You also speak about emotional intelligence, right? So what does it actually mean, and how can today's leaders be emotionally intelligent?
So emotional intelligence, just like agile, is another buzzword that all companies are using these days. And these buzzwords, they come with a baggage, and then they fail to deliver that baggage, and they leave the industry, right? But if you go back to the meaning of these things, they're very powerful, irrespective of what we call them. Emotional intelligence is your ability to understand your own emotions, influence your own emotions, understand the emotions of others, and influence the emotions of others. That's emotional intelligence. It's the four pillars: self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, and social influence, social management, right? Which is really powerful. You think about powerful leaders, that's what they do all the time.
So I'm big on self-awareness and self-discovery, and again, it's from a spiritual perspective. So I'm quite spirituality plays a big role in my life.
Same for me.
And great to hear. And self-discovery is a cornerstone of that. So I've become so intrigued and interested in discovering who I am and my real identity. And so it's been fascinating, and that's something I take into a lot of my courses. I tell them, we talk about SWOT analysis a lot. Every organization does a SWOT analysis, but I like to do it differently. In my courses, I actually do individualized SWOT analysis. So what is your SWOT? What is your SWOT analysis?
Nice.
So, and then of course we connect the strengths to opportunities, to the individual goals, the weaknesses to threats, so there's a lot of interlinkages going on. Otherwise, I like to say, you just have a paper, it's SWOT, and you say SWOT, so what? So,
Yeah.
we want to avoid that moment. Yeah, so again, very, very interesting that a lot of the topics that you talk about. And I find that there's various frameworks and models. Again, I came to do an MBA from Melbourne Business School, and one thing an MBA teaches you is to look at life in frameworks, models, quadrants.
Yep.
And look, there's advantages to that, there's disadvantages to that.
Sometimes you can get lost.
Yeah, sometimes you get lost in it and you lose perspective, and
Absolutely.
you just think, oh, how can I do this? But there are certain advantages, and I believe that structured thinking does help solve a lot of the problems we face. What is your comment on, today's leadership? There's one framework that talks about leadership as leaders who care for tasks and leaders who care for people.
Yes.
And then there's quadrants, and there's 5 different variations of where you are. You can be bang in the center. And I believe that people, when leaders, especially senior leaders, when the CEOs have given them, we need to hit these numbers. It's all about numbers. Human resources become numbers. Employee team members become numbers.
Yep.
And so there's a big skew towards tasks and results. And then there's those who are overly empathetic, overly, are you okay? Are you happy? How do you find the balance? That is the question.
Good question. So so many people talk about leadership, and there's so many opinions about leadership. Yes. I want to focus on 2 things. First, what you talked about, numbers and CEOs. You can never, it's impossible to have a CEO or a senior leader who doesn't have to deal with numbers 100%. Because the board wants them to deal with them. That's part of the job. So they have outcomes and goals that they have to achieve. They have targets.
Yes.
And if you land a CEO job or any senior leadership jobs, you have to deal with those. There's no going away from it, right?
Yes.
Now, some people say, I'm not going to do that. For example, me, I don't want to get a job which people become numbers for me. Doesn't matter how much I get paid. I just don't want that job because I don't think I personally am powerful or strong enough to reconcile my I don't have the capability to be able to be myself and be true to myself and then treat people as numbers, right? But some people do have, and I have seen CEOs who are really, really empathic,
right?
They are humble. They're so good. Like they're just such an inspiration for me.
Right.
I can see that they can reconcile these things when they have to switch to that number calculating, and people become number for them. They have to do it. They will do it. Yeah. But they do it with empathy, right?
Gotcha.
They acknowledge that these people who are going to leave the organization, there's redundancies or whatever, headcount cuts or whatever.
Yeah.
How can we do it in an empathic way? How can we make sure they get the best out of this? And we are not like on a Friday night telling people tomorrow Monday you're not coming, right? So treat them
and have a good weekend.
And have a good weekend, right? Exactly. And then celebrate the bonus that you're gonna get. Right? So it's really hard. It's really hard. And the thing is, I'm going to say something controversial.
Sure.
In my opinion, really good leaders, wonderful leaders who have this capability, they are short-lived. They have a short reign. They cannot stay at the top for a long time. There becomes a time that they have to do something that's under the red line, that's beyond the red line, and they say, okay, I'm not going to do this thing to stay in power.
Yeah.
If you think it's, Machiavelli talked about this many, many years ago, 400-500 years ago. In politics, this is a lot more obvious than organizations. You see, politicians are the dirtiest people on earth because Your red line are the lowest.
Yeah,
Because there becomes a time that the person with the lower red line is going to win over the person with the higher red line.
yeah. Some of them, do they even have a red line? So.
Exactly. It's a bottomless pit of absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's hard, especially, I mean, leadership, some people say leadership is about influence, is not about hierarchy in the organization. Absolutely correct. But if you want hierarchy, if you want to go up the chain of a hierarchy in an organization, leadership skills are important, but also it's important to acknowledge that the higher I go, the more responsibility I have towards the people. And do I have the capability to be true to myself and be an honest person with that responsibility to my people that I'm leading, and also do a good job for the organization? And that's hard.
Can you name a few leaders who get that balance right? The people who inspire you?
Yes, I can name one person. There's many many leaders.
Of course.
There's one person, the company that I'm currently working at, Insignia Financial.
Sure.
CEO Renato Mota.
Right.
Such an inspiration, and
Right.
he's such a wonderful person. And sometimes I think, how does he do it?
Yeah.
He's such an humble person, and no matter whoever contacts him, he always has time for the people to listen to them and talk to them.
Right. And has been at the top for a while.
Yeah, he's been at the top for a while. He'll be leaving the organization soon, though.
Sure. But he's a success story of showing, well, you can do it. You can be there for people and achieve numbers. That's
absolutely correct. Absolutely.
Yeah, okay. Fantastic. All right, and now we have to talk about your book as well. Best-selling author of The Wise Enterprise: Reshape Your Organization for the Age of Uncertainty, which we've talked about. And you even recommend all of us to have an agile lifestyle. You're saying agile is just part of your everyday DNA almost. How do you see agile benefiting professionally and personally? Like, should we even adopt it in parenting, for example?
Yeah. So when we talk about agile in a personal life, it's you can think of it as flexibility or adaptability, right? So it's how flexible you are, how more than flexible, it's about adaptability. When the situation changes in a complex environment in your personal life, how do you react? How do you respond to those changes? If something doesn't work, I'll give you my own story, right? We briefly talked about this. Your podcast is the next big thing, right?
Correct.
And based on what we discussed earlier on, you talk about, for entrepreneurs or people professionals or whoever, that are thinking, what's the next big thing for me? And how can I leave the rat race, right? And shape my future.
Yeah.
Right. A part of that answering that question is finding if you are moving towards a rat race. If you have stepped in quicksand, and quicksand is going to take you in, and in 5 years you can't leave that quicksand, right?
Yeah.
Understanding that, seeing that is crucial. So on a personal level, adaptability is figuring out, am I walking the right path? Am I going the right direction? For me personally, I am going through that question right now in my career, right? With Sprint Agile.
Yeah.
The Agile certification and consulting market now is going down. It has been going down. It may come back up later, but I have to make a call now. Will this become a rat race that I'll be running after clients every day just to meet the ends, just to make enough money to get the business going? Or is it time for me to stop this and think about something else? It is hard, it's like a baby. It's like, I feel like, parents, when their babies turn 18 or whenever that they leave the house, this must be how it feels like, right?
This is very interesting.
My baby is leaving.
It's very interesting you say that, Arash, because I'll just take a quick pause and because that moment of where the baby has now grown and leaves the house. I wrote a song about that. And
Oh,
that is the song that was an official entry into the Grammy Awards this year.
nice.
So that's the link I'm going to send you. So anyway, so
Oh,
watch out for that.
such a coincidence.
It is. And I mean, parenting is a wonderful, very fascinating thing, for all of us, for me as well. So interesting. Look, thanks for sharing.
No worries. So yeah, going back to the book,
yes.
If the audience is interested, definitely I recommend you guys to have a look at it. It's we got in the book, we talk about 4 pillars to shape a wise enterprise. And wise enterprises are enterprises that make the right decisions when they're faced with uncertainty. And these 4 pillars are systems thinking, emotional intelligence, leadership, and transformation capability. Now, I'm not going to get into the details of it. I've previously done podcasts on it, and the book is also available.
Sure.
But the book is also my baby.
Yeah, of course. Yes,
I feel really connected with it. But I'm thinking, I don't want for the rest of my life to be stuck at this book and keep promoting this book. Just sell it. I want something. I want to experience new things, right? I want something newer. I want something more novel and move to the next step, basically.
Yes, interesting. More novel. So I'm an author myself. And both of my novels became bestsellers in 2012 and 2018. And I know exactly what you feel when you call your book your baby. And actually, as we speak, there is an offer on my first book for it to be taken to film. So it's fiction. So both of my books so far are novels. I am going to write my my non-fiction book soon. Hopefully, I'll get inspired by you. But it's my baby. I'm like, do I want to let it go? There's a bit of attachment, I must say, but I understand what you mean by that. Can I just ask you a question? It's my own curiosity.
Yes, sure.
Okay, I don't know how much of an overlap it is with Agile. You're the expert. I'm not. But it's a general life question that when you're going for something, when you have a goal and you're going for it, there are many ways to reach that goal. But you've signed on to one path. You've committed to one path. Now there's an old adage saying, never give up. But I think at some point you'll be like, this route ain't working and I need to course correct.
Yes.
But there's also the risk of you course correcting too early and not persisting long enough for that path because it could have taken you there.
Yes.
Or there's a risk of you persisting far too long and just beating a dead horse. So how do you know when to course correct is my question.
It's a very good question. You know, when I was talking about Sprint Agile just a minute ago, it's exactly the same thing. I'm asking my question myself, is it time to course correct? Right. You know, have you seen those images, cartoons where someone is digging and there's a diamond next to it and this guy gives up
I've seen that.
so close to the diamond.
I've seen that.
But how do you know? What if you
where
keep
the diamond
digging?
is?
There is no diamond, right?
You don't know. Is there a diamond?
Yeah, maybe you keep digging for the rest of your life and there is no diamond and you just dig, right?
Yeah.
So it's hard to tell. Now there is the combination of gut feeling and evidence that
Again,
we have
comes back to evidence-based.
Absolutely. The only thing is what I'm experiencing right now, I can share with you, is there's 2 extra factors. One is that attachment, right?
To the path?
To a path, which makes it harder to let go if the path was successful. Like I have been doing Sprint Agile has been doing so great. I feel so great. I teach, you know, every month I run courses. I feel I get so much energy from this, and it's like leaving the throne. It's like coming down from the throne, which makes it hard, right? That's one aspect.
Yes.
The other aspect is I'm not so sure that the other paths that I have in front of me will lead to something successful.
So more unknown?
More unknown. I have a few business ideas, right? But none of them are as concrete that make me excited enough to say, yes, that's it. That's a new path. I'm going to leave Sprint Agile and go work on this one, right? Which makes it even harder, right? And my gut feeling and the evidence is now telling me you should stop Sprint Agile and move to something else.
Right. Okay.
Right.
So that's where you are.
I don't know what that something else is. I'm desperately looking for it. I got a few different paths. So now I have to go and stick to one and see and validate it, get some
Yeah.
evidence-based information on that path, some
Yeah.
proof of concept to see if it's going to work or not.
So I've got another question, and you don't have to answer this. And again, in my life, because I've often worn many hats, I've straddled many boats, two legs in God knows how many boats sometimes. And the advice given to me has always been like, okay, if you're going down this path and you want to go there, keep going on this until that path is ready. But sometimes so I transitioned into the speaking game. So I speak and I coach. It's only been a little less than 2 years. And I was a marketer before then. I used to run my own marketing business. And the general advice to me was keep doing that until this picks up. And then when the time is ready, you can jump, which is sane advice. But for me, it was a gut feel, and maybe evidence-based, you're the expert, is that I said, actually, I'm finding this very unfulfilling. So I'm gonna drop this cold. I'm gonna drop this right now. I'm gonna wrap it up. I don't want to do this and that, and then I'm gonna go full-fledged into that. That was painful. There was 3-4 months of zero income. Yes. And then, of course, things picked up. Things are going well, by the grace of the universe. And so I'm happy with that. But what are you going to do? Are you going to go there until it's ready, or?
Yeah, very good question. Again, there's no single recipe for this. Some cases you have to stop. Some cases you have to keep going with the other one.
Case by case.
Case by case basis. Yeah. There's one important thing is don't be reckless like me, right? but I'm reckless in personal life, like in physical things, but not so reckless in business, right?
Yeah, fair enough.
Do risk management. If I'm leaving this path, and if the other one, okay, how many clients do I need for the other one to be successful enough so that I can pay the bills, keep the lights on, right?
Yeah.
Do some back of the envelope calculation. Do your numbers. Figure out how much you need to actually for this to work, right? Sure. And how long time can I have without income?
Yes.
Once you do those calculations, you would know what's right.
Yeah.
At the moment, for me, I haven't decided yet, but my gut feeling is at least either stop Sprint Agile or at least reduce operations significantly.
Yeah.
So I can focus on the new opportunities. But again, it would be different every case.
Of course. Oh man, thank you. That makes sense. I think I was prepared for 3 months of hell. I think I got 4 months of hell. It's okay. So I think 5th month, something started dropping in, and then things started moving pretty quickly. So it was good. Okay. Look, I'd love to keep talking to you, but in the interest of keeping the podcast to a certain length, it brings me to the very last question. And as I told you before, the podcast is always the first question, of course, as you know, the two things. And the last question, they are always the same. Yes. And the last question is, according to you, Arash, what is the one must-have, one non-negotiable for someone to become the next big thing in any field?
Yes. I think it's fire.
Oof, love it.
Fire. You need to have a fire in you, right?
Yes.
And that fire cannot be fueled by greed for power or money. That fire needs to be fueled by your passion for doing it and enjoying the journey.
Fantastic. I love that answer. Okay. I definitely try to keep the fire burning, nice and bright all the time. Sometimes it becomes a forest fire, and then I have to sort of control it. And sometimes it goes off. And how do you light it? How do you light your fire if in the event it goes off?
If it goes off, so there's different ways that it could go off. When it goes off as I'm sick of tired of these things, and you just do other things and find the fire in different things. Like now I'm learning piano. That's partially because my fire for some other stuff, I got sick and tired of some other stuff. I said, bloody hell, fuck it, I'm gonna go do something. How about I go learn piano, right?
Yes.
started learning piano, right? I love playing piano.
Yeah.
So you could find other things to light it up.
Yeah.
But sometimes it will be burnout. Sometimes
Yeah.
it will be like close to depression and
Mm,
burnout. And in those cases, maybe you need a holiday. I think holiday is brilliant. Go
mm,
visit Europe, somewhere
mm,
inspirational, somewhere,
mm,
in like Bali or
mm.
Thailand, enjoy the nature. Or Europe
Yeah.
is lovely because you have all the architecture and that's inspirational as well.
Yeah.
Um, and what I found is the pressure of people like Elon Musk, right? You keep seeing these people, Elon Musk, or I don't know, Bill Gates, or what's the Apple guy's name? Steve
Steve
Jobs.
Jobs. Yeah.
And everyone is aspiring to be like those people
Yeah.
now.
Yeah.
Even I feel like, why am I not as good as Elon? Why am I not
Mm,
working as hard as Elon Musk? And why am I
yeah.
not as smart as him? Right? That is toxic.
That is
That
toxic.
that takes the fire away, actually,
Yeah.
because each of us can be ourselves, have our own fire, and find our own path. And
Yeah.
like you said, figure out who you are.
Yes, figure out who you are. And good point. I think when we get into all this, whatever Elon Musk, it contaminates the fire. I think
Exactly.
yeah. Very true. Very true. Self-discovery, who you are. That's what we're on. Okay, excellent. Well, thank you, Arash. Hopefully, stick around. We'll have a quick offline chat as well. And thank you for the time, and thank you for the openness, because this podcast is a lot about that. It's about guests being open and authentic. So you totally brought that to the table today. So, and we wish you all the best with the books, with all the next adventures that await you, your endeavors. And in due course, I'm sure you'll share with us what that is. All the best with that. So thank you for making the time. Much appreciated.
Absolutely. Thank you, Shiram, and thanks to all listeners. And I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you.
Thank you.